So with the upcoming release of Samurai Warriors 5 and its redesign and reimagining of the entire cast, I think it's a perfect time to do the final top tier list for the classic Samurai Warriors characters. I guess these are all the classic characters. Samurai Warriors from 1 to 4 and everything related to that. So let's just dive right in. So, let's talk about our poster boys. First off, Nobunaga Oda is S tier. He has an amazing design, a really good moveset, a really nice character, he's entertaining, and he has a really nice storyline that relates to his character. And unfortunately, a lot of characters connected to him kind of suffer from the fact that his character is so well defined like this. So, you're going to see a lot of characters hit or miss when it comes to the relationship with him. And the other poster boy, Yukimura Sanada, he is going firmly in A tier. He has a really good moveset, really cool design, really nice aesthetic that relates to his design. His storyline is pretty alright. I will say, however, what stops him from being S tier is that his character is not very well defined. He's got a great story to go with it, but his character is pretty straightforward, nothing special and nothing flashy. And a lot of his moves kind of don't make sense, but I can forgive that. He's a pretty alright character. Not a bad place to be. Hideyoshi. When it comes to Hideyoshi, it's not always... it's kind of hit or miss, because he suffers from the unfortunate fact that he has to juggle a lot of story arcs. He's the intersection of a lot of characters' story arcs. He has to be an intimidating warlord, he has to be a caring father, and a relatable friend, and loving husband. And not only that, he's saddled with the unfortunate fact that he has to be the comic relief, even though he also has to carry the moniker of threatening warlord. It's unfortunate. Plus, his design isn't really that great across all the games. They do try to, give it a proper motif, and the motif is well realized. But at the same time, his design isn't really all that compelling. I don't think there's, any moves that are particularly well done. He's not exactly the most fun to play as either. So, that's unfortunate for him. Same thing goes with Ieyasu. A character who has a story arc that spans across the entire series, outpacing Hideyoshi in many regards. But I think that's because he has no character to speak of. That doesn't say he doesn't have a personality, he just has no character to speak of. And that's evident that when he has one story arc, I wouldn't call it an arc, I think it was like a plot thread, and after that point he's just the same character throughout the entire thing. He's the wizened old man throughout this entire thing, and that's kind of unfortunate that he doesn't have that much to grow compared to everyone else, especially when he's one of the central characters in a lot of these. Plus, I don't think they ever really made a design for Ieyasu that stuck out all that much. The design he got in 4 was a good step in the right direction, but his weapon, his design, and his motif doesn't necessarily match. He's not terrible. Mitsunori. I don't necessarily like Mitsunori's character all that much. I mean, he's fine for what he's trying to portray. He's supposed to be a brat, he's supposed to be arrogant, and I guess tsundere is the proper word here. It gets to a point where it's hard to sympathize with the character. Not only that, his design is okay, his fighting style is terrible. I think he's the worst he has the worst fighting style in the series. He's not an entertaining character to watch. Well, he's not quite as entertaining as Hideyoshi or Nobunaga, but at least Ieyasu is at least easier to, watch than Mitsunori in many regards. So I guess it's a toss-up between, a character who has trouble communicating his, emotions versus a character who doesn't really have all that many emotions to communicate. Mitsuhide, he's going to go into A tier. He's always had that classic samurai design, and for better or for worse, they've tried to do some iteration on that with every installment. So he's not just a generic katana user. He's got an interesting motif, cutting through heaven, which is incorporated into his gameplay a lot throughout the series. The one thing that's holding him back from getting into S tier is that his character heavily relies on his connection to Nobunaga. The series has always had trouble trying to make sense of Mitsuhide's, relationship with Nobunaga, and, it kind of works when it works and it doesn't work when it doesn't work. He's got a cool design, cool fighting style, cool combos, really solid character on that front. Kinshin is another one of those unfortunate characters who doesn't seem to have all of that much to do early on in the game, because he dies so quickly that he doesn't have much time to leave a lasting impact. And so he's just kind of a blanket stoic, which is, a personality trait that's not all unique amongst the cast. They do try to do some things with him in Samurai Warriors 4 when it comes to relationship to his family. Not necessarily as entertaining as it could be. Plus his fighting style's alright. There's a lot of sliding in it, and I don't really like it. The only move I really like is the one where he summons a Bijamontan avatar. His weapon's pretty cool though, and that's something to say about it. Can't say the same thing about his nemesis, Shingen, because his design is pretty nice, but everything else about him, he suffers the same problems with Kinshin. They do try to, differentiate him and set himself apart from Kinshin in many regards, because he was, a bit of a jokester, a wise and old man and all that. But there, again, dies off too early in the series to leave a lasting impact. I guess, the right term is he's a jolly character with no real depth to it, and he doesn't really have all that much to contribute narrative-wise. And the biggest sin here is that his fighting style is probably one of the worst in the series. Not as bad as Mitsunori's, but certainly not the most fun to play around with. A lot of his attacks are way too close range. It's not fun to grab a feel for him. So yeah, Shingen's not really all that fun. I'll say Ujiyasu is S tier. I was thinking about putting him in just A tier, but at the same time, they did accomplish what they wanted to accomplish with this character. And, he's in the similar boat as Kinshin and Shingen, but he differentiates himself because he doesn't surround himself with a whole bunch of people that are just going to kiss his ass and follow his lead. There are people with personalities that he can bounce off with, and, he can strike up a dialogue. There's chemistry going on. There's things about him that separate himself apart. Plus, he has an interesting Yakuza boss motif. His fighting style, not the best. I'm going to say it, not the best, but certainly the most interesting. Something that's actually worth playing around with just a little bit. But his dynamic, his design, his story, and his relationship with other characters actually pushes him enough to, be in S tier. Motorchika, also in S tier. His eccentric personality, he's just like Nobunaga in many regards. Except they actually do give him relationships with characters that do kind of make sense in a way. He's not so out there that he's unrelatable to. Plus, they pick the correct characters to give him a relationship with, like Koshisho, Mitsuhide, Gracian, and and characters of that nature. Also, he's got a really good design. The K-style motif is, pretty interesting. His fighting style is good. He's got really nice combos. He's really fun to play. No is S tier, right up there with her husband. Again, she was designed to have the same synergy with Nobunaga, so everything about her hinges on how well they sell her relationship with Nobunaga. And it's actually done pretty well. And it's, she has an interesting design throughout all the games. Not very compelling personality, but it's an entertaining one. And she has a really fun moveset. Not necessarily all that deep, but it is interesting to play around with. Her combos are satisfying enough to pull off. She has a really good design, really cool Muso attacks. The only thing that's kind of lacking with her is that she's kind of hard for other characters to relate to her in many ways. But it is what it is on that. Ranmaru, I'm going to put in A tier. They do... actually, no, I'm going to put him in B tier. I almost overpraised him. Ranmaru has a really good moveset, but there is way too much sliding in it, which bumps him down even further. I don't like movesets that slide. I'm sorry, they're garbage. But, his moveset is fun. I will give him that. His moveset is fun to mess around with. But at the same time, they don't really give him a whole lot to do in this series that isn't directly related to his relationship with Nobunaga, even though that's the most important aspect about him. So they try to give him a relationship with Mitsuhide and Gracia. It kind of works in certain games. Sometimes it's completely forgettable in most. Like, especially the newer games, they kind of keep forgetting that Ranmaru kind of looks like a girl. And, they don't play around with it. I think the last time that Ranmaru looking like a girl as a comedic selling point was Samurai Warriors 3 Extreme Legends. It wasn't funny from the start. I mean, it was entertaining, but it wasn't necessarily funny. Yeah, his character isn't really all that deep or compelling in most cases. I like what they tried to do in Samurai Warriors 3, but I'm not too keen on his character in 1. And they don't really do too much with his relationship with Gracia in 4, which is a shame, because I think... I thought it was cute in Samurai Warriors 3 when, they had a blooming relationship. So, it is what it is. Speaking of Gracia, she's going to go in S tier also. I figure I would have not put her in S tier in a different time. But now that I'm, think about it more and more, it's like, yeah, this character has been executed pretty well. The games always treat her like an anomaly, so they aren't trying to push her, and they don't really push her all that hard. I mean, they gave her a chapter in Samurai Warriors 4 too, but it wasn't really anything crazy. It was just like, yeah, all girls chapter. She's, perfectly fine, suitable. She doesn't do anything particularly egregious or offensive or anything like that. She just has a relationship with Mago, and it doesn't horrifically affect his character. Did I call Magawichi Mago? Oh dear. She has a really interesting relationship with Magawichi, and they do interesting things with her, and it's kind of entertaining. It's not all in your face or annoying or anything like that, so she's a fun character. Hisaide Matunaga, S tier. This is another one of those characters who intersect with Nobunaga's personality that actually has a unique personality to bounce off of. I love this character's moveset. I love his combos. His fighting style is really cool. He's got an amazing design, and I'm so glad they didn't really change all that much in Samurai Warriors 5. His bodyguard, however, Muninori, he's alright. He has no personality. The thing he's got going for him is he's a veteran, he knows his way around a sword, but at the end of the day, he's just characterized as Hisahide's muscle. But he completely makes up for it for having a really good moveset, really cool design, and really interesting motif. Katsuya Shibata. He is also going in A tier. Katsuya has one of the most underrated storylines in the series. I think that's a testament to Koei Tecmo not portraying him in a very typical sense. Because he did start off as a very atypical personality. He was just a grumpy old man as he started out. His relationship with Toshiie and Hideyoshi is very entertaining, and also Oichi. They were respectful to this character. It was probably because they're expecting you to at least play him once. So, they kind of have to make him at least interesting. Same thing can be said for Nagamasa and Oichi. Both of these characters' stories are very linked together, so it's important that they share the same tier rating, but at the same time, yeah, these characters have been very well handled when it comes to their relationship. They do a good job selling the romance between, Oichi and Nagamasa. Oichi's relationship with Katsuya, as, her second husband, is also really well done and done tastefully. Uichi has a really cool moveset. She's never had a very consistent moveset. You know, in Samurai Warriors 1 and 2, she had Kendama Toy as her weapon. Samurai Warriors 3 and 4, she has hula hoops. And now, in Samurai Warriors 5, she has yet another moveset. It'll be interesting to see what they do with that, but for what she's done, yeah, her movesets have always been fun to play as. Nagamasa actually has one of the best movesets in the game. The one thing that's holding them back is that their relationship with Nobunaga is very... It's another one of those unfortunate things, because Nobunaga's personality is so out there and entertaining that their personalities just kind of suffer. Because, like, if you look at Uichi, you would never be able to tell that she was Nobunaga's sister. Did I say anything about Katsuya's moveset? Yeah, he's got a really good... His moveset is actually one of my favorites, too. Toshie. I'm gonna put him in B tier. He's fine. He's a goofy idiot. He is what you might call a himbo. He's just like a big lug who's loud and abrasive, but you know, he's got a heart of gold. But he does have an interesting relationship with Katsuya and Hideyoshi, so that's entertaining to watch. Plus, he's got one of the better movesets. But you know what? Yeah, he's A tier. I like him enough to put him in A tier. So yeah, his design is a little bit goofy and unfocused, but you know, I like it. His nephew, Keiji Maeda. I like Keiji a good enough, but there are some moments in this series where his personality is just very ill-defined, because he doesn't really do all that much throughout the series, but he's got a really good moveset. His design is really compelling. They're really trying to, you know, portray him as, you know, a very chill version of Lu Bu, right down to, you know, his potential love interest being a dancer. But for what it's worth, Keiji is a very fun character. But, you know, not much in terms of, you know, his story. He's similar to Muninori in many respects. I'll put Okuni in A tier. She is a very fun character, all things considered, when they allow her to be that. What sets Okuni apart from characters like Gracia is that they do insert her in places that is disruptive and draws focus away from the actual drama of the series. So I think it's a better move to just make her an extra character like they did in Samurai Warriors 2 and 4, because when she gets her own story mode, it just doesn't gel well with the, you know, style that's going on. Plus, she's not necessarily treated like an oddity or like a stranger to the battlefield, if that makes any sense, compared to Gracia, you know, who's just a lost child in the battlefield, so people just treat her like she's weird. With Okuni, they actually treat her like a threat, which is kind of weird. But she is entertaining. She does reflect off other characters like Goemon and Keiji pretty well. Her moveset's fun. Not exactly all that deep, but it gets, you know, it's fun to play around with. Making her an extra unlockable character was a really good move. Goyaman is C tier. I don't know. I think they kind of forgotten or kind of don't know what they wanted to do with Goemon after Samurai Warriors 1. He shows up from time to time again in story mode, and that's fine, as, you know, a random obstacle. Nothing pivotal, nothing interesting. They're just playing off of the legend of his character, which is alright, I guess. Nothing much can be done with him, though. Doesn't have anything all that compelling. He's just a treasure hunter. He's just played purely for comedic relief. You know, that's fine. But the comedy is, you know, it's not great, because it's all centered around him being a thief or a miscreant in many regards. Plus, his moveset and design, not very good. Not as satisfying as they should probably be, considering the fact that his fighting style is a mace and a fucking firecracker on his back. Like, you know, there is fun things about his fighting style, but it's not something that I would actively choose to play as. Same thing with Yoshimoto. It's hard to see that there would be people that would follow him. as a threatening warlord. He's just kind of a bumbling buffoon that, Nobunaga kills in his opening campaigns, and that's fine. He's just portrayed as kind of an idiot who likes playing Kamari and all that. They do try to give him a little bit of depth in Samurai Warriors 4 by introducing Dark Yoshimoto. When a lightning strikes, he takes on this very sinister persona. But that lasts for all of one chapter because, he dies afterwards, so there's not much time to, elaborate on it. They should have given him at least one more chapter to play around with that concept before they killed him off. But it is what it is. Yoshimoto has a decent moveset, but it's kind of marred by the fact that the actual combos that he performs isn't really all that impressive. Really good use of the Kamari ball. I don't think there's many people out there that would actively choose to play as Yoshimoto, even if his moveset was good, because his character design is just kind of meh. And I can see why they, gave him a complete overhaul in Samurai Warriors 5. So that's interesting, I guess. And I think that's all the characters that are directly related to Nobunaga in some sort of way. So let's move on to all the characters that are directly related to Hideyoshi. First off, of course, with his wife, Nene. Nene is an entertaining character on her own. She is a clone. Let's get this out of the way. She is a clone of Kunoichi. There's not really much I can say about her moveset that I won't be saying about Kunoichi. But for her character, it's actually pretty entertaining to watch. She's that typical, concerned Japanese housewife that, is always suspecting of her husband of cheating, which kind of doesn't fit with the period and their status. Because Hideyoshi is a warlord. Of course he's going to have a whole bunch of courtesans, that are going to bear his children. That's not a disappointing thing for, Nene to be upset about. What they really should be doing is setting up Nene to making sure that Hideyoshi is treating all of his courtesans nice, because at the end of the day, they all have to get along. So, this angry housewife idea for her character, it's cute, but at the same time, it doesn't fit the era or the class that she's in. And, so like similar to Hideyoshi, they both started off as peasants, and now they're at the higher class, so they can't unshake the sensibilities of, impoverishness. Plus, she has always had a really nice design in all the games, so that's pretty nice. I don't know why she's a ninja. I have no idea why she's a ninja. Sakura Shima is S tier. He's a really smooth talking character. Like, he easily sees past Mitsunori's facade. He knows exactly the right things to say to Hideyoshi. He's a very interesting character to watch. I don't know what Sakura's style is called. He's got that Jigen look. I know they kind of compared him to Elvis in as Samurai Warriors 2. He's also got a really cool moveset. His storyline, nothing all that compelling. But his interaction with other characters is pretty cool. Hanbe. Hanbe is entertaining as, wizened mentor figure as he is. Really interesting design, compelling design. Not a whole lot going on in terms of story, but he does play a pivotal role that's interesting to play out when it comes to other characters. His moveset is alright. Not all of it is good, because I guess it's the hit detection on his moves is always so spotty that it's really hard to get a grasp on, what exactly he's doing. But, he's pretty fun on his own. Can't say the same about his apprentice, Hambe. Now, Hanbe was a character that I never really understood all that well. And that's because this character is so, out there in terms of what he serves in the grand story. My biggest problem with Hanbe is that he comes off like a bratty kid and not a prodigy. Even though he's supposed to be like a prodigy that dies young. But, they put too much emphasis on the fact that he's a brat in many regards, and that's bleeding into his fighting style and his design, because he looks terrible. in every game. He looked terrible in 3. He looks terrible in 4. He looks all right in Samurai Warriors 5, so maybe they'll, change it up a little bit. Plus, his fighting style is just, not all that good. His mobility is the only thing he's got going for him. But that kind of doesn't mean anything when everyone can summon a horse, so... Motonari, I don't know. Motonori doesn't really come off as a character that's a fun character that's, interesting to follow. I would say his moveset is alright for most part, but it's not fun to play as. I think they made him a little bit too young for what they're trying to portray. They made his son, they almost look like brothers. Whoops. But aside from that, his design is not that interesting compared to everyone else, and I think they leaned a little bit too hard on historical accuracy when it came to his design. So not an entirely great fighting style, not a good design, not necessarily good motif, not a necessarily interesting character to watch. So it is what it is on that. Takake is slightly more interesting than his father. Actually has a really okay design, nothing too great about it. A really interesting moveset that's actually fun to play around with. But again, his storyline as it relates to his connection with Motonari and Kanbei, he seems like just a replacement for Hanbe, which I guess is what leans into that story a little bit. But at the same time, they don't really differentiate him and Hanbe all that much. So he just seems like Hanbe 2.0. Maybe they seem to be fixing that in Samurai Warriors 5, where they're giving him a bit more of an attitude compared to Hanbe. But as it stands in the classic series, he and Hanbe are practically the same character. I forgot to talk about these guys. She's alright. Not entirely great, not entirely terrible. She has a really interesting moveset. Her design is actually pretty, across all the games, is pretty good for what they're trying to portray, but it's too simplistic. Again, that's what it's going for. She's supposed to be a nun, but again, same problem that Kinshin has. They could have played into the fact that both this brother and this sister have to play mom and dad to a whole bunch of other characters, but it's not well explored to any great extent, so no, that's unfortunate on that part. Koshisho is S tier. She's designed to directly relate to her potential love interest, so that's interesting, I guess. Her character is entertaining, her moveset is fun, her fighting style is good, her design is good, her she's entertaining, she has an interesting personality. The one thing I think that really sets her back from being at least a higher tier S tier character is that her story is kind of weird, because because of the character that she's supposed to be portraying, but they're also giving her this lamentful story about her not being able to love people, or the people that she loved often ends up dying. They don't really play around with that. They just, I don't know, it doesn't fit her character. They should have done something else with that. Magawichi Saika, S tier. Magawichi is probably one of the best characters in the series in terms of storylines. In every game, he is given proper beginning, middle, and end that is properly juxtaposed to one another. Because at the start of his story, he has a very positive relationship with Hideyoshi. He flirts with a lot of women, but during the middle part of his story arc, when Nobunaga attacks his village, he drops the facade and gets serious. Shit gets real for him, and then it's just this endless pursuit of revenge and his hatred for Nobunaga and all that, and it conflicts with his relationship with Hideyoshi, Gracia, and Koshisho, and all those, and everybody he's had a meaningful relationship with. Plus, he has a really good moveset and really cool design. really fun gameplay. Oh my god, I just realized I was about to do Yoshihiro, and then I saw that Toyohisa is in 2 spots in here. Whoopsie doodle. Anyway, Yoshihiro is gonna go into A tier. Really fun character. One of the few characters with a really interesting command grab, really interesting moveset. It's not a great moveset by any means, a stretch of imagination, but it is imaginative, it is fun, and they do play around with the fact that he is using a hammer. His story isn't all that deep or complex, but it doesn't really need to be, considering, who this character is. He's fighting the ever-changing tide of war and, trying to teach his nephew that there's, more important things in life than just fighting, blah, 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 blah. He's fun to watch. Toyohisa, I'm going to put him in... I'm going to put Toyohisa in B tier. He has a very good moveset. His character arc is compelling. His personality, they could have done better. Because I think that Toyohisa's personality doesn't gel well with the story arc that he's going on. Like, he's supposed to be bratish and impulsive, and I get that. And his, uncle is trying to teach him. Whatever Yoshihiro is trying to teach Toyohisa is not properly conveyed through this character. I figured his death should be reflective of what Yoshihiro is trying to teach him, not Toyohisa's own beliefs as a warrior and all that stuff. Because he dies in battle. You could at least try to connect that to how Yoshihiro is trying to raise him, but, they don't do that. So, that's unfortunate. Genji Otachibana, C tier. Sorry. She has her moveset is very bad. I'm just going to say that right now. She has a very bad moveset. She doesn't have a character to speak of because in the first game, they don't really give her all that much to do. It's just her rivalry with the Shimazu that's given light, but nothing else. In Samurai Warriors 3, they actually tried to give her some sort of dynamic and relationship that directly ties with her relationship with her husband. So it wasn't exactly the most compelling thing in the world, but it was something. And then in Samurai Warriors 4, they kind of tried to marriage the two concepts. And now she's just a stoic tsundere. And her moveset is terrible. It's never been good. Her design is okay. I don't dig the headpiece. I guess she's supposed to look like a knight, a Joan of Arc type of character, which is weird because they actually did make Joan of Arc. I don't know. It doesn't really. It clashes so much with the era that they're in, which I guess is the point. But at the same time, it seems like everything related to the Tachibana design being a reference to Joan of Arc in some sort of way. And it's not even a good reference. Muneshige. Yeah, he's alright. His personality is, easygoing boyfriend. Not really that interesting to follow, which is weird. He's supposed to be on par with Tarakatsu in terms of valor and all that. I don't know, he's just kind of flat. I guess because he's supposed to contrast Genshio's Type A personality. His fighting style is pretty good. I'll give him that. I like the sword and shield fighting style more than most. Move, not exactly a character I seek out to play as. Same thing with Kyomasa. I like some of Kyomasa's moves, but I don't like them all. I like his charge attack. I like his ult abilities. His combos, they could use work. His design isn't really good, or at least it's not really. It seems a bit incomplete because he's got the spiky hair, he's got the long coat, but it's not in service to anything compelling. I will say I like the path of his story arc where it's directly confrontational to Mitsunori, but I don't think they go much in depth with it as much as I like that they should. Kyomasa is like Muneshige. He's the straight man in the relationship he has with someone else, which is Masadori. Masadori is an infinitely more interesting character than Kyomasa. Someone you would call a himbo, like the himboest of himbos. But I think what sets him above a lot of the other characters is that more recent games actually give him more responsibilities beyond him being just like a big lug. Plus, I really like his moveset. It's really fun. It has a lot of weight to it. It has a lot of impact. His design is atrocious, but it matches his personality when in relation to how they utilize him. It's all about how they use him. They actually use him pretty well. Should I round this off with the Hojo? Kai is an A-tier character. I guess you would call her motif gal, gyaru, and her entire motif is that she's a tomboy that wants a man. That is a nice idea for a character. It is kind of held back by the fact that they don't do anything with it. By the end of her story arcs, she isn't seeking any deep relationships. They kind of squander like her big shining moment throughout the series. Like the big shining moment in history is her humiliating Mitsunori at Oshi Castle, and they don't really do anything with that relationship wise with Mitsunori. Like that would have been a really interesting thing to have. Like this was Mitsunori's big break to, really impress Hideyoshi, and she just like completely emasculated him. It comes up and it just disappears and nothing comes of it. She has a really good moveset. The motif of the moveset, which is water elemental, doesn't really gel well with her design, but it's a really nice moveset, really cool. It doesn't in any way fit the era, but at least it matches the country. So there's that at the very least. Lady Hayakawa, the only female character in this series to have the word lady in her name. She is going in B tier. She's okay. The kids are alright. Similar to Oichi, like you'd be forgiven for forgetting that she's supposed to be Ujiyasu's daughter, because she looks nothing like him, and there's nothing about her that would suggest a connection between the two, except their movesets being vaguely related to sports. She's alright, she doesn't have really much in the ways of a personality, she's just like the golden child of the family. Everyone respects her, everyone likes her. Nothing really comes of her personality when it comes to her relationship with her brothers. And I think they really could have explored that a little bit more. She's just fine. Her moveset is fine. Her fighting style is fine. Her motif is fine. Her element is fine. Her design is okay. Her personality is fine. Everything about her is just fine. There's nothing particularly wrong with her. Tarafuma, S tier. What an amazing debut of a character. One of the best unique story modes in the entire Samurai Warrior series, maybe in the entire Musou series. Shows himself off as a being of chaos. He's, the relationship he has with the Hojo, the constant hinting that he might actually be a demon. His relationship with Ujiyasu and Kai is especially entertaining. He's got an interesting design. His moveset's not really good. But you know what, it can be forgiven for many aspects. He's one of the few characters who has a strong debut, which is, the very opposite of Genshio. Then we can move on to all the characters that are directly related to Ieyasu and Mitsunori. So, first off, Tarakatsu Hunda. He is A tier. He is the series stand-in for Lu Bu in every sense of the word, and you know what? I like it. His stoic personality fits to juxtapose that stoicism. He is like the matured voice of reason for Ieyasu. Tadakatsu's personality doesn't really have much to do. He's just like a person that Ieyasu can talk to, which, that's fine on its own. But his relationship with Ina, relationship with the Sanada, that's pretty compelling for what they have him do. Also, really good moveset, really interesting ult that ties back to his ability to be, immovable. They don't stretch the characters, like rolling the story too thin. Ina is also a A-tier character. She didn't really have that much to do in Samurai Warriors 1 or 2. I think 3 is the time when she really takes off as her character, when they push her relationship with the Sanada a little bit more. Ina herself, she is portrayed to have a very close relationship with her father. Now, she does develop a personality that is a bit tomboyish, but for what they do try to give her, it's actually pretty compelling. She's one of the few people that you have to constantly adjust for because she's a left-handed fighter, which is always confusing when it comes to mounted combat. But yeah, Ina's pretty alright. She has a really nice design. Hanzo's gonna go in A tier. They don't really give this character all that much to do. He's just supposed to be a silent ninja assassin. For what it's worth, that's all they have him do. Sometimes he's chatting it up with Ujiyasu, but other times they turn him into an edgelord. His moveset's pretty good. I like the fact that he can summon shadow clones with no strings attached, compared to, Nene, Kunoichi, and Kotaro. So, hit or miss on that, but he's very fun to play as. Okay, so that's all the Tokugawa except for Naotora. Naotora goes in B tier. I get that, when I was researching my Naotora video, I developed a deeper appreciation for the character, but at the same time, I can't say that I don't understand why people find her annoying. Because, I don't think they ever properly make it clear that she is a parody of Japanese parenting. The amount of apologies that I compounded into my video, that was just like a compound of the things that she does throughout the series. Like, she doesn't apologize every other time. It's just, something that happens often. She's able to carry on a conversation without apologizing all the time. She actually does stand up for herself in many regards. And she can be quite vicious. Her moveset is pretty fun to play as, especially when it comes to her true Muso attacks. Her design is pretty nice. I'm not quite sure what the motif of this character is meant to be portraying, but I can't say that there's anything particularly bad about her character. Her personality's not bad. None of it's great. So she's B tier. Takatora, aka Cell P Light. So Takatora, he goes in B tier too. I like his moves. They're really fun to play around with. He's one of the few 4 characters that I actually like I actively try to play as. But his personality is pretty generic. Not much else is going on in terms of his personality or his story arc or his character arc. I think he's the same one. He's just completely ruined by the tragedy of, the wars. Same thing with the Yoshitsugu, unfortunately. Not much going on with him. I do really like his moveset, though. His personality is pretty flat. He does have a lighthearted side to himself that he shows off in Samurai Warriors 4. He's a reasonable person. He speaks bluntly, but at the same time, he's not exactly all that entertaining to watch. Masamune Date. I'll put him in A tier. I mean, he hasn't, since he's been in the series, since the first game, they've always been, flip-flopping about what type of character he has. He started off as an immature brat, then quickly developed into this tragic character with a lot of baggage behind him, and that comes off really well in the 4th game, especially when it comes to his relationship with Kojuro. He's got an interesting moveset and a really, compelling design. His personality is hit or miss in some regards, but his storyline is actually pretty good. Same thing with Kojuro. There's something there, not a whole lot, but they don't try to stretch it as far as they do with Masamune. It's just a question of loyalty between him and his master. Plus, his moveset is actually one of the most unique of the series. Kotsugu. I will say he's in A tier. He's an entertaining character. He's one of the few characters who has to kiss Kinshin's ass. But for what it's worth, he's actually entertaining to watch. He has a very comedic personality in the later games. When he started off, he was a bit more serious. But I think 4 finds that middle ground of being goofy and serious, where after a while, the tragedy of war basically breaks him down into a completely different person and changes him. He is very much playing off with his relationship with Kagekatsu. Kagekatsu is my favorite character in the entire series to play as. His moveset is really fun, his weapons are awesome, his design is pretty cool, and his storyline in direct relationship to Kotsugu is pretty entertaining. He's a stoic, and like Kinshin, he actually has characters two bounce off of. He has trouble communicating with people effectively compared to, someone like Kotsugu. And, they play off that pretty well. There's a lot to dissect with Kagekatsu's personality. Nobuyuki Sanada, he's alright. Actually, no. He's A tier. I really do like Nobuyuki's moveset. It really has a lot of weight to it. It's more impressive. Compared to Yukimura, I would say that, Nobuyuki is a pretty good character, especially when he has to clash with his brother about what's important. And there's clearly a bias between the two because Yukimura's friends are on the Mitsunori side of things, and Nobuyuki is directly related to the opposing side in the anti-Mitsunori camp. So that's something. Kunoichi. She is okay. Again, whatever I said about Nene in terms of gameplay, I'll say about Kunoichi. Her moveset is, it's alright. It's not great. It doesn't have a lot of range, doesn't have a lot of depth to it. It's actually kind of confusing in some aspects, especially with the juggle attack. But I think her personality is alright for what they want her to do. She's supposed to be a Takeda ninja that converts to being a Sanada ninja. They rarely get that across properly. But for what it's worth, there's nothing particularly wrong about her character. She's actually quite entertaining, especially with her relationship with Kai. That gets played up a little too much for laughs. And I don't know, whenever Kunoichi's around Kai just loses a few brain cells and just acts really childish. I guess that's what happens when your true friends are around you. Why did you put Toyohisa? Why is Toyohisa here? Let's put that there, so I don't get confused. I'll say that both Musashi Miyamoto and Kojiro Sasaki are S tier characters. Actually, I'm gonna move Musashi down to A tier. Both Musashi and Kojiro had a really strong start in Samurai Warriors 2. Their absence could really be felt in Samurai Warriors 3, where they weren't even allowed to come back. And then when they came back in Samurai Warriors 4, they're extra characters. So with their characters and stories, we can only judge Samurai Warriors 2 for. And what is in Samurai Warriors 2 is very compelling, really deep stuff that's very interpersonal to these characters, which is something no other character in the series has gotten. What does it mean to be a warrior in a time when warriors are not needed? So Musashi and Kojiro are really good. The only reason why Kojiro is above Musashi and gets into S tier is because his design is actually pretty striking. Like, they didn't just make him a pasty character, designed him to be very eccentric, very has a very specific mannerisms and, a compelling personality. But Musashi doesn't have much of an entertaining personality. He's very much Kojiro's straight man in the relationship. They bounce off of each other, and, Kojiro is the eccentric one who takes things a bit too far. Musashi is the more, orderly person, as it will. Also, Musashi's design isn't really that interesting. I like his alt design more than I do his, main design. They didn't really change it up in future games. Kojiro's design isn't really that great either, but at least he's, overall his personality stands out. Nagamasa is a B tier character. I like him enough, but his gameplay is pretty substandard, all things considered. His personality, not much to talk about. His storyline, it is somewhat entertaining. Tarakatsu being kind of like his surrogate father in some sort of way. And then we get the Spirit of Sanada characters. Cha-Cha is alright. Her design, it's okay. It's a nice merger of Uichi and Nagamasa. Sasuke is... he's alright too. Again, nothing compelling, nothing we haven't already seen in the series. I guess I like Masayuki's gameplay enough to not put him in B tier, but again, his characterization, there's nothing unique about his character. Loyal retainer of the Takata and all that stuff. He's one of those characters who has to kiss his Shingen's ass. I guess that's it. And seeing as there's a duplicate here, I guess I have to fill the D tier with something. So I guess we gotta do this. These two characters are interchangeable. They have the same they are the exact same personality. They're just unique NPCs given default movesets from the generic pool. And she's just an NPC that they don't really have any interesting ideas to do with. They could have done a whole lot more with her in Spirit of Sadana, but they don't really do all that much. So yeah, that's my top tier list for Samurai Warriors. Obviously it's not perfect. You'll notice that I didn't really put a whole lot of characters in D tier because there's not really a whole lot of characters that are absolutely terrible. Just ones that are horribly misused. But in terms of entertainment value, all of these characters really don't suffer that bad. And I would say that this was a pretty good run for the classic series. If this is, generic NPC, useless NPC, and you added 2 Toyohisas here, you fucking idiot. If that is the worst that this series has to offer, then that's not too bad. I look forward to, when they wipe the slate clean in Samurai Warriors 5, where we get new character dynamics and new personalities and new things to, explore with a smaller roster and, a tighter story focus. So that's going to be fun. But this is the definitive top tier list for the classic series. And there you have it. That is the final tier list for the classic Samurai Warriors characters. I look forward to what's happening in Samurai Warriors 5 as we get reimaginings of all these characters and, we retire these folks until they come back for the next Warriors All-Stars. Thank you guys for watching. Now please get the hell out.